is it time to introduce a basic income in the UK? Professor Geoffrey Hinton, who's been dubbed the AI godfather, was once asked by the UK government what we should do about AI taking jobs. He advised them that a universal basic income was a good idea, and billionaire Richard Branson agrees.
100% think that's really important. The coming on of AI and other things, that there is certainly a danger of income inequality. Basic minimum earnings for everybody. Just experiment with some cities and see what happens.
Well, there's already been numerous trials and we're going to cover a few of those. But first, what is a basic income? It's defined here as a regular cash payment every individual receives without any reference to their other income or wealth and without any conditions. Or you can use a minimum income or a mincome, which is a means-tested benefit to top up everyone's income to a certain amount. And the first notable trial, one that was the catalyst for many others, took place in Dauphin, in Canada, between 1976 and 1979, with the money going to low-income families. Interestingly, after an election, a new government didn't like the idea of giving people money, so they scrapped the experiment with the effects left unclear. It was only 40 years later that the study was analysed by economist Dr. Evelyn Forget.
I was doing quite a lot of work on the relationship between health outcomes and poverty, and I wondered if that old experiment, the Mincome experiment, had ever had an effect on people's quality of life, on their mental health and on their well-being.
And it did. She found that the experiment had eradicated poverty in Dauphin, titling her paper The Town with No Poverty. She also found that employment was only fractionally impacted, with 1% fewer men working, which was overwhelmingly teenage boys. This was reflected in increased high school completion rates, and a small percentage of women worked less too, and this was largely new mothers who took extended maternity leave. She also found that hospitalisations decreased by 8.5%. There was less domestic violence and fewer mental health complaints, with a large reduction in anxiety and depression symptoms. Not only this, but the people of Dauphin were reported to have increased trust in institutions and increased participation in community events, both social events and local volunteering. And these findings were reflected again when Finland ran a basic income experiment for 12 months between 2017 and 2018. They wanted to compare the employment of those who got basic income to those on unemployment benefits. They found that those on basic income worked slightly more than those on benefits, and they also had better financial well-being, mental health and cognitive functioning, as well as higher levels of confidence in the future. And there were similar findings again in Stockton, California. This time the recipients were able to move into full-time work at about twice the rate of the control group. The control group being people on traditional benefits. And those people on basic income were healthier, showing less depression and anxiety and enhanced well-being. So, basic income doesn't seem to negatively impact employment and has positive physical and mental health outcomes. The cost of a basic income obviously depends on how much money you be given and to how many people, and it wouldn't be cheap. However, Dr. Evelyn Forget said her research suggested that after some time, a basic income would largely pay for itself.
Pay for itself. I certainly do think that. Health is the largest expenditure for provinces. It's the most challenging expenditure for provinces. So if we can use a guaranteed annual income in order to make people healthier so they require less health care, then we can reduce the growth rate of those costs. We can reduce the growth rate of, as you mentioned, youth justice system. We can reduce the growth rate of the criminal justice system. So I think that we would see all of those very positive effects occurring in the economy.
It's hard to say if this is completely correct or how long it would take to pay for itself, but there are other things to consider from a health perspective. It's estimated poverty costs the healthcare system £29 billion annually. A basic income could help put a dent in those costs. Remember in Canada's experiment, where hospitalisations dropped by 8.5%. If this was similar in the UK, you could eventually make other drastic savings within the NHS. And the Joseph Rowntree Foundation reported in 2016 poverty costs the UK economy at least £78 billion per year, to increase public services, reduced productivity and higher crime. And this cost would be higher today as poverty has increased in the last 10 years. A basic income would also help amend the welfare system, replacing the £80 billion per year we spend on universal credit. It could also help amend the way disability payments and pensions are paid. And finally, another way of raising funds would be through a robot tax, which is essentially a levy on companies replacing people with robots. Displaced workers tend to find lower paid jobs, while companies replacing people with AI make record profits. It wouldn't be possible to achieve those figures without the innovation of previous generations. The country should benefit from automation as well as business leaders. We could also ensure these companies pay the tax rates they're supposed to, but that's a discussion for another video. AI is predicted to take millions of jobs in the coming years. A basic income would mean people don't need to rely on the goodwill of tech billionaires to ensure they can afford the basics. But what do you think? Is a basic income worth the investment?